Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. We are going to talk about one of the famous artists, George Tucker, and his a couple of artworks. Today, my guest is Amir Juraev, who is my best friend and fellow student at Webster University. He is here with me today. Amir, let's introduce yourself at first.
Hello everyone, my name is Amir Juraev. I also study at Webster University and my major is also AR. So basically we spoke word today. We're going to talk about the government bureau and the subway by George Tucker.
Thank you, Amir. Let's start our podcast with background information about George Tucker and his paintings. Can you give us more information about his life and career?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, George Tucker was an American painter who was born on August 5th, 1920 in Brooklyn, New York. So he grew up in a wealthy family and was encouraged by his parents to pursue a career in art. And he attended the Art Students League of New York and later studied at the National Academy of Design. And he also served in the Navy during World War II. And you know what? Tucker was known for his haunting, meticulously detailed paintings that often depicted isolated figures in ambitious, dreamlike settings. Like his work explored themes of alienation, conformity, and the dark underbelly of American society. Like he was part of the magic realism movement, which emerged in the 1940s and 1950s, and was characterized by a surrealistic approach to representational art.
Well, thank you, Amir. To be honest, I am very willing to ask you that what is your first thought when you saw the picture? How does it make you feel about?
Well, basically, the first thing that jumps out at me is how helpless and hopeless the figures seem to make me feel. Like the dark lighting and sterilized surroundings make the people waiting in line feel like they are being pushed around by the government. You know what?
Absolutely, I think that's one of the most powerful things about this painting, and how it makes you feel like you are stuck in a system that's too big and abstract to take care about you as an individual student as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I admire the way Tucker expresses emotions with color, like soft blue and green provide a clean and freezing environment that is incredibly off-putting.
Well, first of all, just look at the painting, Amir. The figures in the paintings are all hunched over with blank expression on their faces. They're all dressed in identical suits and hats, which emphasizes their lack of individuality. The room they are in is also very sterile and impersonal, with harsh floor sand light, right? So here is a question, Amir. What do you think the painting is trying to say about bureaucracy, which is still exists today?
Well, basically, I think the painting is trying to show how bureaucracy can strip people of their humanity and turn them into gogs, like in a machine. The figures in the painting, are all reduced to mindless drones trapped in a soulless environment that's completely devoid of any warmth or human connection, basically. But is there anything positive you can take away from the painting, Bobber?
Well, it's hard to say and name only one thing that grabbed my attention, but well, I think the fact that the painting is so powerful and affecting is a statement to artist George Tucker's skill as an artist. He's able to convey a sense of despair and hopelessness that's hard to ignore, right? And I think that's an important message, especially in today's world where bureaucracy and red tape can often seem overwhelming and often overlooked, right?
That's a good point. I get the painting serves as a reminder that we need to strive for a more human-centered approach, like to governance. I mean, rather than simply treating people as faceless numbers.
Yeah, and the depiction of government employees working behind the counter as faceless and in a uniform also contributes to this dehumanizing feeling.
Yeah, you make a good point. Like, I think this picture is still important because we still have problems with government power and complexity.
It is interesting to think about as well how people might have reacted to this picture back in the 19th and when it was made in the 1950s. At the time, the idea of government management was becoming more popular and people felt like they had less and less control over bigger the process, and people felt that they had little value in the society rather than the government that they have.
Basically, I think it's important to point out that government bureau is not just a picture of bureaucracy. It's also a comment on the larger social and political problems of the time.
Definitely, it is a strong reminder of how important human connection and humanity are in a world that can something feel cold and uncaring about.
You're right, like people felt anxious and unsure after the war. They tried to figure out how to live in a world that was changing quickly. And I think this feeling of not knowing what will happen is still with us today. We live in a time of a lot of political and social change, and all it's mixed, and it's easy to feel lost and confused.
Exactly, Amir. I think that's a real message of the government bureau that we need to remember that all behind the paperwork and regulations there are real people with real needs and desires in the society, and if we lose sight of that we risk our losing humanity, right? Zucker was a part of a group of artists called the Magic Realists. They were interested in studying psychological and emotional landscape of American experience. It can be seen in his previous paintings, of course.
But what is the interesting point is that they force us to think critically about the world around us and to question the things we take for granted.
Yes, and I think that's why the government bureau, this artwork is such an important piece of art. Even when the systems seem too big to handle, they remind us about the power of humanity and human connection between government and citizens. Anyway, this painting still remains an important artwork in the history in the after the Middle Age. So, have you seen the George Tukes subway paintings, and is there any similar details we can compare with previous artwork? What do you think about it?
Oh yeah, I've seen that one like a long time ago. Like it's definitely a unique piece of art.
What do you think? How unique is this artwork?
Well, basically, like it's painted is like exciting, like for starters, for beginners to see it. The colors are muted and the lines are crisp, making everything look almost surreal.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It almost looks like a scene from Dream or something else, right? Exactly. And there is subject matters itself. The painting shows how many people in subway car who are disconnected. Nobody's really interacting or making eye contact or anything at all. Sometimes you are in a public space and want to keep to yourself. Yeah, could you agree with me in this point?
Yeah, Like, I noticed that too, like, it's eerie, right? That's true, actually, but there is something said about it. Like, all these people are crammed together, but still totally alone, you know what I mean?
Definitely, and that's part of what makes painting so powerful. It's commentary on modern society and how we are all isolated, even when surrounded by people in the public. I can see that what I mean. It's definitely a thought-provoking piece, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and the fact that it's been so enduringly well known since it was painted in the 1950s shows how much it resonates with people, you know what I mean? I say that the subway shows how strong Tucker's unimaginable creativity vision is, like, was. I mean, the picture shows a group of people waiting for subway train while standing on a platform. All of the figures are looking forward, and their faces are blank and uninterested. The lighting is sharp and clinical, and the whole scene has a feeling of being alone and cut off, you know.
Exactly. And you know that the Tucker's use of color to show how he feels is one of the most striking things about the picture. The pale greens and blues make the room feel cold, right? Sterile and very distant. The images are shown in different shades of gray, I think. I can see that, which adds to the feeling of being apart and alone, like disconnected from the surrounding. Even though the picture is more than 70 years old, it still seems very important today. People who live in cities often take the train, and Tucker's description of this feeling of being alone and disconnected is something that many of us can relate to and feel about, right?
Yeah, and the fact that all the figures face forward and don't look at each other says a lot about the state of modern society. We live in a world where people are more connected to them like than ever before, but we can also feel very alone and cut off from each other. And I think this is why Tukir's work is so powerful. It forces us to look at the world around us with a critical eye, as I said before about the government bureau, and the question the thing we take for granted.
Yes, you are correct. Tucker was riding the train when he noticed that the people around him did not seem to care about anything. He remembered this event and gave him ideas for the culture, I think. In the 1950s, as I know, the subway was a part of bigger art trend called magic realism. And this is another interesting fact that this type of artwork focused on making pictures that looked real and had lots of details to make them look like they were from another world.
Well, the subway does a great job of capturing the otherworldly feeling with the way it uses color and light, almost like the train stop is a way to get to another world.
Yeah, that's true. There is a lot to learn about art and its value in the society. And the subway by George Tucker is just the beginning, I think. It's a very important piece of art that still moves and challenges us. We want to thank you for all guys listening to our podcast. The Government Bureau and the Subway by George Tucker is still interesting topic for the podcast. We hope our talk was interesting and you learned something new. Thank you all guys. We hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.